Good evening, everyone. We're in the Public Arts Select Committee of October 4th. Haafenswala and Queens Squamish, Owayamayo. Welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. There's an agenda in front of the committee. I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Meg, seconded by Maciek. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes from the September 6th meeting. Moved they be approved. Moved by Meg, seconded by Catherine. Any errors or omissions that anyone noticed? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes? No? Why don't we just quickly go do introductions around the table again. We have Maciek back, which I'm really excited about. Kiana started last month. She's our youth rep. It's fantastic to have Kiana on the board, but maybe we'll go around the table just so everyone can make sure everyone's familiar with everybody. And welcome, Dan. I'm Patty. I'm the chair.
I'm Catherine. I guess I'm a kind of a member at large. I'm an arts journalist until next week, and then I'm an arts business owner after that.
You're an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway,
yeah.
I love this place.
I'm Adrian Blount. I'm here representing the BIA. I own the Zephyr Cafe as well as the Ground Up Climbing Center in town. And yeah, I've been on this board for about a year now.
Awesome.
I'm Kiana Lee. I am a youth representative and I'm a grade 12 student at House on Secondary.
I'm Toby Jackson and I'm an artist and a curator of the Foyer Gallery in the Squamish Public Library.
Devin Guest, staff liaison for the Public Art Committee.
I'm Dan Griffin. I'm the GIS mapping supervisor
The district.
at the district. Yes.
I'm Meg Fellows, and my main community project right at the moment is the Turtle Trail. I shepherd that slowly through. My interest in the arts is pretty broad brush, really, but what I like doing and I'm pursuing as a retirement project is music. So there you go.
Awesome.
Maciej Walentowicz is involved in art and design education. Now I'm not involved in anything.
Except making white and art. And art.
And Maciek was on the committee and then was off the committee for a little bit and now he's back on the committee. So welcome back.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Show and tell. Fran was supposed to do show and tell. Do you have her?
I do have
cool.
it.
And this is something we started at the beginning of the Public Art Committee just to start to get people's creative juices going, see what other communities, other cities, other countries are doing for public art. So anyone who wants to bring something to the committee to sort of
What's going on? Of course I have to do it. So without Meg being here,
Fran?
Sorry. I'll scroll down to no. It's supposed to be basketball courts as art, and the link.
Is it that link there, the artsy.net article,
Yes.
editorial Mexico City,
Yeah,
and that one didn't work?
doesn't seem to be coming up.
It's a really long scroll though. You look on the side.
I'm afraid.
Keep going. It's just a really long blog. Oh, we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Basketball player.
Everyone get that all, everything?
Yeah.
There's a test before we can
That's
escape the room.
This is how I study for tests.
My apologies. I,
Oh, yeah.
What are the R names?
Hmm.
What is it?
I don't think that's ours.
That's a good question.
sorry, I thought I was confident in that link. I opened it up like 4 times and then put it in my presentation.
Oh, you see, it's changing. Every time you go to a new one, it changes up top. That's weird.
This is sort of the blog. You could probably be going back into the
Yeah. Yeah.
the 1950s on this blog. If you well, except that it didn't exist then.
Okay, why don't,
Daily Mail.
we just wait for Devin?
This is what France.
Mm-hmm.
It's
There's
introduction.
basketball courts. Oh, okay, well, that's cool. Like a big Persian mug.
Is this it?
No.
It's a rabbit hole.
Why don't we start with Dan and I can.
Okay, why don't we start with Dan? And we'll come back to the other two.
Yeah.
Great.
Can I?
Yes, please feel free to come and drive.
Welcome, Dan,
Thank you.
the magic man.
Let's see.
Do you want me to take it out?
So Dan, I guess it's been almost 3 years now that Public Art Committee started, maybe 2.5, and Dan came right at the very beginning to do a little bit of how our GIS could support promotion and awareness of public art. At the time, we actually had a committee member that was quite keen on it. Then the district hired that committee member, and she had to resign from the committee. So it never really got off the ground. And the idea was that we would actually go out and start GPSing locations and be able to sort of have them mapped on the site. We've evolved quite a bit in our GIS programming since then, so I suspect there's some new stuff, which we thought we'd have Dan come back, and there's new members too, so welcome back.
Thank you. Nice segue. Thank you, Mayor Heinzman. As mentioned, I'm Dan Griffin. I'm the GIS mapping supervisor, so all things mapping and technology at the district. So I was here, as the mayor said, a few years ago, and yes, things have evolved, and there's some new tools, and kind of mock something up here to show you today. We can have a look at the idea around collecting public art via a map and then displaying that as a map tour online, so people, or through a phone or whatnot, so people can access the public art and walk around and get information about public art. So the tool that I'm using here configured is a crowdsourcing tool. So crowdsourcing essentially allows a group of people to collect a whole bunch of data around any particular subject. So this is configured for public art, but really it could be used for a whole bunch of different purposes. The tool itself is as I said, available. You can use it on a laptop, desktop, mobile phone, really any platform. Pretty straightforward. So I've added some points here. Essentially, when you launch the tool, there's a period of time that we could set for collecting data, and then we could turn that off if we decide we want to have it available during a certain period, publicize it, and then we could turn off the collection side of it and just have the map available for people after that point in time. You can see I've added a few points here, just as a sample. So it's pretty easy to use. Just hit participate. There's some sign-in options which are optional. So we could set it up so that anyone could log in without using any sort of authentication. which is probably the easiest access for people.
Yeah.
If you want people to be able to add points and then go back and edit those points, then some sort of authentication would be required so we could track that person against the points that they add to the map. But I'll just go in as guest. So it's really, really easy to add points. You just basically, I've got a photo here. Add a photo, and some info.
Ari.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, sorry. I was thinking that as I
You're
typed
American,
it.
You always have to put mistakes in because that elicits response.
There you go.
You're very clever, Dan.
Good point. So you could put it by location and by address, or actually just put a point on the map. Let's drag it over here. Try that again. There we go. Submit, and it saves that point. And you can go back and view all the points on the map. You can see it there as you highlight over points. They come up on the sidebar.
So simple.
Yeah, it's super simple, really easy to use. As you zoom into different locations, the points available at that location would show up. So.
So using the Squamish Adventure Center is a great example because Visuals, the Squamish Valley Artists Society, has a wall, or has two walls and a glass case that we do monthly rotating exhibits as art exhibits inside the Adventure Center. So, so could you have kind of like 2 point? I guess you could do two dots side by side, kind of within the same area. So to be able to show a photograph of the art walls,
Yeah.
and then specifically, you know, be able to tag that with
Yeah.
Like the
the
library.
contact.
Yeah.
Yes, like the library,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. Yeah, and as I was showing, as you zoom in, the information or the points for that location would show up, so you would see the series of points that are
Right,
available
yeah.
at the Adventure Center.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
shouldn't be too cluttered. As you zoom out, the points group, so you could see, it's a little bit hard to see on the screen there, but you can see that there's a number 2 there and a number 2 there. That's basically aggregating those points so you know that there's multiple
Right.
points at those locations.
So if I'm really interested in art galleries, for example, it's pissing rain and I've got my Aunt Sally coming who's really interested in art galleries, can we sort that? And what are the art galleries that are available in Squamish?
Eventually, this really is around collecting public art. So we're, right now, I mean, it's set up for a very simple interaction where you put in a title and a description, but that could be, we could build that out to have different categories. So art gallery could be a category that you would select from. Really, I mean,
Indigenous carving?
sure, yeah, I mean,
Mosaics?
whatever it might be.
I think
Mm-hmm.
as we get more and more on there, you might want to start categorizing.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
other
I'm not saying
Yeah.
we can do it right away, but I'm just wondering
We
what
can
the
do it right away.
possibilities
Yeah.
of the technology are, you know, so that if we're thinking from a marketing perspective, somebody's coming and they've got a specific interest, is this a tool or do they have to go through everything?
Yeah, so the other side of this I was going to show, so this is the collection tool, but then there's also actually an editing tool
Okay.
that's available. So that would allow, you can see the different fields here. These are all the fields that are being collected on. So a digital field could be added for a category or a type.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
could be added. So this is where we would go in and then edit those points or authenticate those points. At some point, someone would need to curate this and make sure that the titles were correct and that the proper artist was attributed to the proper piece.
Yeah, and maybe the date or something like that, to a little bit about
Sure. Yeah,
the
date
history,
that
a little
was-
bit about.
So, for example, if next year we'll have an art walk,
Mhm.
hopefully more successful than this year,
Mhm.
and could we fit that art walk into the map?
Yeah, actually, another great segue. I was
That'd
going
be
to
great
show
call.
the Bellingham art collection. map, which I thought was a
Can
good
we-
example.
Lower the lighting in here so we can see that
I
more.
think it's
Is that Kelsey's?
Kelsey's,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
So you can see the Bellingham experience. They've organized their art collections based on locations within the community. Similar, it uses a similar tool, but this is for displaying the art pieces, not necessarily for collecting them. So we could do something with the art walk where we have a map with points on it, and you could go through the art walk and follow the points
And
as you go.
If you click on that one, so click on one, there's a little, yeah, so then you could have the artist and the address and example of his artwork, and even a link to their webpage, I'm assuming, if they wanted that.
Yeah, like having the home studios on,
Mhm.
which would be
The
amazing.
artwork actually was lacking the map. That was the main problem.
I noticed Arts Whistler had one, had created a map,
Mhm.
and that was kind of all, the only one I saw, other than when Toby put it up.
Did we have a map?
But, I mean, this is organic,
Yeah,
so
it's
you can
not-
get one up there for Art Walk, and while it's on, before it's on, while it's on, and then you have another event on that you have art around the community, and so it's not just sort of the permanent public art, but the
Right.
pop-up public art.
Right, yeah.
And you could attach the artist to the location, so you could easily pre-populate it before it's actually in place, because I
Mhm.
know that there's a lot of movement of the art getting into the restaurants and the locations and the
Mhm.
smaller things like that.
Can it also be set up so that if I'm coming to the downtown area, I want to know a walkable area, I want to know a drivable area kind of thing?
Yeah, potentially, sure. Like these points could be organized in a way that would, facilitate a driving tour or a walking tour. Really, I mean, the routing's not on here, but you could add routing information so you can follow
Information as
a
well,
track.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, there's lots of options, definitely. I think where it kind of fell off the rails, but didn't progress last time was because we didn't have somebody who was willing to take it on to curate the information.
Go
of
out
the
there and get
collection.
the info and put it up, yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
validate it and
Yep,
take
it's time
that on,
consuming.
so that was.
I mean, we could set it up so the Public Art Committee has ability to sign in, and if you're out and you see public art, take a picture, and go on to this website, put it in yourself.
Yeah, the,
It's also a great project for Quest students or out-of-town students, or, yeah.
Because then they could do a little bit of research too in terms of when was it put up,
Exactly.
who did it. that kind of stuff.
If you connect with Quest students, I recommend connecting with their artist in residence, who comes for a set period of time, and that might be a good project for them, because they
Yeah.
have, when they come on board, they're working on their own art, but they also have to do at least one class. And they can stay for up to 6 months, I think, at a time. Laurel Terleski has been one. I can't remember who else, but locally, but yeah, that might be a cool project for them.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
a great idea.
community art, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting subject. I'll apply.
And this just seems like a much simpler tool than 2 years ago with 3 children were here, so this, really easy.
Yeah, it is much simpler. I think last time there were quite a few more steps involved to collecting the information and editing the information. And then there's social media links in here as well, so you can share the information on Facebook or Twitter.
Oh, wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is this a prototype now, or is this live, or?
This is, well, I've set it up as a prototype, but it could be live
Okay.
fairly easily.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about how you'd want to proceed with that, whether you want to just open it to the committee initially, or if you want to have a wider sort of release of this,
Well, what does the committee think about maybe just opening it to the committee for the first 3-4 weeks? And we'll see how much we can get populated. In the meantime, we'll maybe talk to either one of the classes at the high school or Quest University or something, see if there's actually a group that want to take this on as a bit of a student project. and then go live with whatever we have in a month. And it's still organic, it still will be,
Yeah.
it's iterative, people will continue to add to it and, yep.
Oh, just another suggestion, I don't know if the district can do this, but the federal government offers funding to businesses at least for summer students.
We often have summer students.
This could be a summer student job.
Also, I know a girl that's doing homeschooling and is looking to put a portfolio together to go to hopefully get into Emily Carr next year. And this might be a little
Great thing for a
project for
resume,
her to
yeah.
do, to
Mhm.
add to her
Yeah.
resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can approach her. Yeah.
So I can set up a login for the committee, and then that could be distributed to whoever you want to have access to it.
Great.
Okay.
And then we would just set up our own identity and then we know,
It would
You
be
can-
under
you have
one
your own login.
login right now.
oh, okay, we
So it
want
would
to,
be an individual, unless you wanted to use the social media logins, which you
I hate doing
could.
that. Yeah,
Can I request or mention that we should probably have a small list, criteria list that needs to be added, like the artist's name, if it's available, how old it is maybe. The medium will probably get mentioned in any little bit of history or the reason behind it. Because if that doesn't happen, you know, in the initial stages, it would be a missed opportunity because we'll have to go back at some point and go, oh, we don't know anything about this. And then
So-
try to fill it in.
So just so I've captured it, so the name,
The name, maybe the name of the piece, the artist's name,
artist,
medium, year, the,
year, category, is that the same as medium?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably category, type, like genre.
and there may be a story behind it, maybe just
Yeah,
a box.
story, and
to-
maybe, whether, you know, whether it's publicly funded, or maybe a business, or
Private.
a grant paid for it, that's probably useful stuff to know. I don't know, because some of these places have plaques, but some of them have plaques, but a lot of them don't. And you can-
Dan and I will get with that and I'll circulate it out to both of you.
The other thing I wonder about is buildings. Do we want structures or are they art pieces? I'm thinking the Eagle Watch Shelter, I'm thinking the Adventure Center, those things. Yes or not yet?
So,
Architecture as a genre.
Architecture?
totally up to you guys.
I have no problem with that.
I think,
But-
okay, here, why don't we talk about the pros and cons of that. The only con I can think is that you kind of want people to go and this is art right away and not sort of dilute it too much. And maybe it won't, but
But I'm assuming that if we decide and change our minds after we get the thing built and running, then we could add another category if we
Yeah.
chose.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like with the Adventure Center, you know, there's the log books that are there as public art right now, as well as an art walls in the interior. So you don't really need to name the architect if,
Yeah.
you know, people are going there anyway because there's public art on the grounds, so.
And in the same way, I mean, it might be useful at some point to make notes of historical things like Emily Carr's time in Brackendale or something like that. But we don't, that's not public art per se, but that's art history. That-
Yeah, that could evolve into like a story map idea,
Yeah, for sure.
which there's
Or-
other
You know,
templates that we could utilize
all
for
these
that.
artists who
Yeah.
painted the Tantalus Range, and they're now in the Audain, and there's some amazing paintings coming into the Audain in November of this region.
I just think that would need a little bit broader public input because there's some people who work on that already in the community that aren't really included in this
No.
group.
Yeah.
And so I would just be a little bit anxious about
Overdoing
adding
it.
that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
why
fair
don't we focus it on sort of traditional public art?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, like just,
Right.
let's get that done.
Yeah.
And we can start building on it as
Mhm.
more interest. And, I mean, this committee is mandated to do public art in whatever form that is. We're not the Arts Council, but I think if if we can figure out a way to help the Arts Council with some of the initiatives they're doing, like integrated a bit more. But I think that's sort of the next step. Let's get all the public art out
Sure.
there.
Squamish Nation, polls, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we send an invitation to them saying that this is on the,
So,
looking at this?
Suecia Elskas is part of the committee now, which is awesome. She couldn't make it tonight, but
Yeah.
we have a liaison there now, and absolutely.
Because I think before we actually get this thing up and running and available, that we should probably cross that T and dot that
I actually don't think I think we can get it up and running, because it's not going to be complete. So we're not going to get it, the first time it goes to public, it's not going to be
It's also
100%.
So we're not going to immediately be able, or we're not going to immediately choose what goes on and what goes off, and we can edit it, but.
Yeah. And
So there are gonna be some things that just go up that we don't agree with, and we'll eventually take down, but.
Well, it's just that I'm wondering because, you know, like the polls and the various carvings and that kind of stuff, I would feel really weird that we put it on the map without having them aware of what's going on.
oh yeah,
Thinking at the school, you know, those kinds of things, that's.
Yep, and we can absolutely send a communication saying, hey, we're doing this public art mapping. Included in that is going to feature public art on that nation members have made,
Yeah.
and
Do you have ideas
any
about?
thoughts on them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Squamish Nation's new communications person is Christine
I
Endicott,
know, yeah.
the former editor of The Chief, so.
Communications is in Vancouver?
She's based,
Both.
she lives here, but I don't know where her office is, but, you know, she's local. so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's more external communications.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but it's a connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she knows Squamish.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we would always do that anyway, but yeah, absolutely. But I don't think we necessarily have to go and get permission or anything like that. I think this is going to be a bit of an organic process and get things up there. Ken, any thoughts?
I
Look-
like it. I
love
think it's really interesting to use and have, especially for tourists. It's easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things for them because when things are complicated, you don't really want to put in that much effort, especially if you're not from the place.
So Dan, would this nest within our website, or how would this be sort of, or could we nest this with Tourism Squamish? How do we connect all this?
Yeah, so we could easily nest it within. It's a standalone site, but it's connected with the rest of our mapping information technology. So we could, there's many potentials there. We could embed it into a web page in squamish.ca or have it as a link that's a microsite or whatever you want.
Would it fit in at all with the open data stuff or the open data site?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Actually, we could have extend this and have a downloadable layer or downloadable list for people if they wanted to do something.
He can't close the door.
But we could have this available as a layer on our open data site for people to access that way as well. So if they wanted to download it out of a spreadsheet and do something with it, or
Yeah.
even use the layer directly in their own app or their own tool that they want to go.
Yeah.
What is an open site, please?
Do you want to, can you have, for like 3 minutes, just show what our open data site is sort of all about?
Does everybody else know? Maybe I'm just.
What open data is?
Slowly getting up there.
I'll let Dan explain open data.
So data.squamish.ca, you go there. So the idea.
This is cool stuff. This is why Dan is the man.
So open data is essentially, it provides access to the district's data in a format that's not, the intention is to limit the technology boundaries to accessing data, so, you know, it's fairly agnostic in terms of its platform, you can download it in different formats. It actually, and it makes that data accessible without any constraints, so you don't need to log in, you don't need a password, you don't need to sign a data sharing agreement. You can just go on here and access data and download what you want. And it's, so we're using it as a storehouse and inventory for primarily a lot of our GIS related data, because that's the easiest sort of low-hanging fruit in terms of getting data onto the site, but it can be extended to all types of different municipal data or public or community data. So it's really simple, essentially just collections of data sets. And you can go on here, view the data set, view the, it's a fairly complicated data set, but you can view the data set, view the attributes associated with the data, look at different, look at the data table, and let's see if we can find
Could I look that up by my address kind of thing and how close I am to the creek and sensitive, does it do that kind of thing?
that's a little bit more like if you want to look at proximity and look at relationships with other layers. I direct you to our GIS, our mapping site to do that, because there you can turn on and off layers and query layers. This is like if you wanted to download you know, a spreadsheet of all the sensitive areas in Squamish and do something with that information. Or let's say you wanted to build your own app around sensitive areas, you can access this and use it directly in your application.
So with
through the
public art, we
APIs.
could actually do that
Yeah.
if
yeah.
we build it.
So we would theoretically have all the data points for public art, and someone else could go out and build an app
Yeah.
with our
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Data.
Maybe a good one to show is the business license
Yeah,
data, because it's a little more
a little more
accessible.
tangible, yeah.
Yeah. So the business license data, you know, it's just really, you can quickly get stats based on the different attributes that are included in that. You can see we have a whole lot of construction related businesses in town.
That's the number of businesses.
So like,
Yeah, there's a number of business licenses, yeah.
yeah. So if you were trying to start a business and you need trades workers, you can come in and go, oh, look, there's a lot of trades workers in Squamish. I can start my business there because I can recruit labor, for example. Just from an informational point of view. Like,
Yeah.
let's say someone wants to do and we haven't necessarily filled all these data points yet or made this type of data accessible, but let's say someone wanted to build an app that showed air quality monitoring, and we had sensors all over the community at various elevations, at various places, and you can actually say, well, I have a kid with asthma, I'm not going to live there, but I might live there. Or if someone wants to then make an app or a program or something that gave people access, like a real estate company wanted to take that information and mine it to present, oh, here are the 10 points you'd want to live because you don't like greenhouses or whatever, whatever it is. So it's just opening, government has all this data and we don't have the time or the ability to use it all, but there's all sorts of people out there who may want to mine that data for a whole bunch of reasons.
Is this live now?
It is, yeah.
Has been about a year now?
Yeah, yep, just about.
Yeah.
I think,
Where has I
January
been
last
for a
year.
year?
January this year. Data.squamish.ca is the site,
Yeah.
and it's linked through our district website as well. There's some more information about it.
Just trying to open government up and also just make all this data useful to people. And data with the whole smart cities, you know, sensors and data is going to be so huge in the future in terms of, and the idea is to keep it open and accessible and free.
And is this the District of Squamish, or is this UBCM, or is this a
This is
provincial
District of
thing?
Squamish, however, Open Data, Open Government's a global initiative. There's governments all over the world trying to open things up. And also use it for evidence-based decision-making, you know, instead of sort of, I think we should put the road there. Or put the, earlier
Yeah.
today we were talking about bus stops. You know, if we're actually collecting more data on our buses, you can think of how all those applications may be used in a whole bunch of different scenarios.
Because one of the things I was interested in back when I had my environmental hat on was, you know, how much connectivity do we have of green space? And if we actually built on all the stuff that was zoned for residential kind of thing, then what would that actually visually look like? So then what's left for different quality of environmental connectivity and that kind of stuff? So what are these parks, that kind of thing?
And
Would-
that,
Yeah, so one of the main users of this site right now, I'd say, that the primary users are professional community. So, you know, everyone from developers to architects to environmental professionals,
geotechs
engineers,
and
yeah. So they used to
biologists and.
call me up and say,
Yeah,
can
for
you
that-
send me this data set? And now I just say, well, you know, here, have at it. Here's all our data, download what you need.
And is Quest actually plugged in and using some of this stuff and some of their coursework and that kind of thing?
You know, it's hard to know because it's not, there's no authentication required, so
Right.
it's a little bit hard to know who is using the information. We have some, you know, general stats around how many users and which data sets are the most popular and things like that. But in terms of who's accessing the data, that's actually one of the principles of open data is you can access that information without any sort of barriers.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I should rephrase that. I mean, are they aware up on the hill that this data sets and series of data sets actually exist? So they can use this in their coursework and that kind of stuff?
No
These are
idea if they're aware.
Communication,
I have no idea if they're aware.
yeah.
It's up to them to figure it out.
Well, I mean, we communicate as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, I get it,
But
totally.
I have no idea. But if you want to tell them,
Well, because
absolutely.
when I actually, through the continuing education, some of the courses, they were looking for community projects and that kind of thing. I didn't know at that point that this was together, it might not have been together. But I certainly know some of the mathematicians and that kind of thing were saying, you know, we really want to engage with the community, would love to do some of this.
Oh, yeah, the,
So it just seems to me that it would be a useful link to make at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done
I
a
mean,
bit
you've
of
done a
work
lot of work.
with,
Yeah.
and I've been in touch with Quest and I've worked with them
Yeah,
on
yeah,
different
yeah,
projects.
that was really the question.
Whether they're aware of this like in particular, I'm not sure. But,
we're getting a little off topic.
yeah.
But it is another layer that we can sort of plunk into the open data piece too and GIS piece and, but yeah, thank you. That's good. So you're gonna send out a link so we can all log in, and if we're out and about and we see art, take a picture. Hopefully it's a nice day, it's a nice picture. And we'll start to get it, we'll start to fill it up, and then maybe by the next meeting we'll go live. Sounds good, everybody?
Quality control is the only thing that I wonder about, you know, the editing function.
Photos, you mean?
thing. Sorry?
Photos, you mean?
Well, photos, you know, Catherine's, you know, what information, you know, would be really nice to have, you know, and to fill up.
Yeah.
You know, and if anybody's gonna take it on as a project, which I'm not gonna do, or if we're just
Well,
gonna.
in the next
figure
3
out-
weeks, I suspect we're not, but I think down the road, maybe that's where it goes. But at this point, it's almost like a
Let's just try and
wiki
see.
type thing. People are just putting information, we'll correct it as we go, and
And sorry, what was the agreement by last meeting?
that we'll
Next
start to just, the committee will have access to the
Oh.
public art portal.
Okay.
And with it, by the next meeting, we'll just do what we can. If you're out and about and you see art, take a picture. Remember when you get home to log in. I guess we could even.
Oh, you can do it on your phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
log in and say, blah, blah, blah. If you don't know the name of it, it could be that we come here and Toby goes, oh, I know the artist who did that. And we'll, at that meeting, sort of,
That would be
flesh it
useful, I
out
think,
then,
I
yeah.
think that would be
and
great.
we'll go live after the next meeting.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan, interesting.
I found the basketball.
You did?
courts.
Awesome.
I did.
Let's do that.
That's why I was on my phone. I wasn't texting.
I didn't even notice. I didn't
Feeling
even notice.
guilty,
I
or?
wasn't. Amazing Google. You had to put in.
We'll just pretend Fran's here. Showing and telling. Cool.
Miro.
Where is this?
Mexico?
Mexico.
Is this
Memphis.
Paris or
That's
or just all
Tennessee.
over? Oh, they're
I
all
think
over.
it's all over.
Oh,
The ones
okay.
that I looked at were in the, I spent 5 minutes looking at this, were in the US.
Italy, I see a couple,
Yeah.
I just Googled it, Italy. Oh, there's some beautiful
Missouri.
ones. Look at that one. Cool.
Are they still playing the basketball courts?
Okay, no. You just have to be able to see the,
The lines.
Lines, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just really not the.
Tennis courts, I just said.
did friends send any sort of other comments about it, or just, this is cool?
No, other than I'll speak to it at the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did she just stumble upon this on the web, or did she see this in person somewhere?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Or she had an idea of what basketball court she wants to be done.
Yeah. Oh, and the backwards too.
All kinds of canvases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one, that back one.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
No. Cool. Kenny, you got some friends that'll do that?
Pardon?
You got some friends that'll want to do that?
Yeah, probably.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. City of Calgary Public Art Policy. Devin, you brought this to my attention.
Yes, so some of you may have seen in the news that the City of Calgary suspended their public art policy in response to a public, I'll say outcry, of this particular piece of art. This is by New York artist Del Geist and Patricia Lighton, and it's meant to embody the Blackfoot concept of the 4 seasons, 4 directions, 4 elements, and 4 human stages. And the people of Calgary did not
Hated it.
like it.
It's not the first time they've been annoyed too,
Correct.
in a general sense.
Yes. So Mayor and Council unanimously decided to suspend the public art policy until further notice. And I think the intention was to go back and to. I see this as a community engagement lesson in terms of how the committee selects public art and their due process in selecting public art. This was a blind proposal where the committee selected it and then the artist was sent off to go and.
So the committee
Create.
selected the artist and the artist
Correct.
just went and did something. Okay.
Correct. And so over the last couple of years in the district, we have been working pretty hard on community engagement and what that means and what that feels like to our community and the different levels. So I just thought it was very interesting and worth potentially a conversation around the table.
Absolutely. Catherine?
I was just wondering how much that cost.
$500,000.
Right.
That's the big
Meg?
I just think it's a really interesting challenge. Because one could make art that's all pretty and doesn't challenge conversation and thinking. And I think that would be a mistake to do that. That being said, I suppose there's some limits to that as well. It's a really interesting challenge, and I would hate to see only things which are, 50% plus one, in the community are acceptable as art.
And this, I think, is really the challenge when you're dealing with public monies and public art. Because I'm of the mind too, that art is not necessarily there to please everybody.
It's not
And
necessarily
some of the best art is what people perceive as the worst art, because it's provocative, it gets people talking, it makes people feel, whatever that may be, it makes people think about what the conversation is they want to have about art. It provokes them into actually having that conversation about what is our identity, what does, I remember when Councillor Deal came to a committee meeting about 1.5 years ago, she talked about the poodle on a stick, remember that? Main Street, and an artist for about $100,000, literally, it was a poodle on a stick in the Main Street area. And huge public outcry, this is terrible, how could they spend money? But it started this whole conversation about what does the Main Street neighborhood, how do they identify themselves? Well, they don't identify themselves as a poodle, and that's why they didn't like it. It was a mutt, maybe they would have been fine with it, but it generated this whole conversation about what is the neighborhood's identity? What do we want to reflect in the art and the streetscape and the built environment in terms of who we are and what? So it actually did an amazing amount for actually conjuring that conversation. But it was very controversial at the time.
But if this is backed up by clear criteria, what is the purpose of public art, then we have a defense.
Well, I think that's part of it, yeah. Yeah.
It's also different if it's a blind proposal. Blind proposals, we don't know what the artist is going to do and what statement they're going to try and tell, then we have no ability to defend it or to look at it or to tell the city. I mean, there is no art that's not criticized. I don't think at least I've never seen it, and if it is there, then it's probably not very good. But I mean, if so long as we go into it with open eyes and knowing, what group of, what subsection is not going to like it, then we can make that value judgment ourselves.
But it works in Venice. In Venice, the artists are being chosen of the world for Biennale every year. So the artist is chosen, and the artist does.
And that's how Biennale was done here. We didn't choose the artist or the artwork. Biennale chose the artist, and the artist said, okay, I want to do this here. I want to work with Wildwood. I want to do something to do on the ground with this.
Because if we choose the art is already made.
Yeah.
So it's not new art.
That's fair. I mean, I guess then you choose based on previous projects, but that doesn't mean that they don't want to pivot. Because nobody wants to do even a version of the same thing twice, because that would be boring and not interesting. So
I think we're a long way away from $500,000 art project. Just thought it might.
I just
What do you think that's got something to do with it?
But it's good to have it as part of the culture of this committee and beyond, because there's no point getting people interested in public art at this stage. And at least if something like this is controversial, comes out and 500 people storm the city hall, but at least maybe 60 of them, if you can engage some people, 60 of them from all walks of life ahead of time, if it's slowly churning and people are thinking about it, at least then there's there's a conversation happening, and they can talk to others who are suddenly involved when something becomes crucial. Yes.
So it's an education process as well.
Yeah, I mean, start
To a certain
now,
extent.
because you're not going to engage every resident in Squamish now. You would maybe if you put that up, but at least if you engaged 1% of the population, that's 1% more than is engaged now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Blue Cheese is the perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, more people engaged in Blue Trees than any public art we've ever done, and it cost nothing. And it outraged people.
From a staff perspective, I see it as my role to assist you guys in whether it be consultation or collaboration with with the community when the committee does decide to do a major art piece and what that looks like, so that no one's in a position where we're having this conversation.
Well, and I think we don't want to lose momentum. We don't want to derail what we're trying to do. Slowly build up that vernacular, that built environment, that appreciation for aesthetic and thought-provoking things in communities' mindset. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I also hope it doesn't make us a little shy from pushing it a little bit too. We just have to be cognizant of and weigh the pros and cons as we move forward on some of the decisions we're going to make.
Whether there are opportunities,
Yeah.
like being at a festival as a public art committee, or, you know, just some kind of public interaction.
But maybe we should have some criteria, since the public art is location specific, we have specific conditions here. And see if we want to put into criteria that it should to some degree create the controversy, then we are in trouble.
Yeah.
As a
Especially if that's not our intention.
as an
Well-
intention.
Something just, how about an April Fool's Day event that people don't know about, do a thing like this?
However, if we say that it creates
If we survive.
awareness of certain things,
Yeah, well, it
then
would
that
create.
changes
Yeah.
everything.
I think that would be, I'm sorry, just me because I'm troubled. And I just thought that would, just popped into my head, it would be kind of interesting to have an event and then, you know, get it on CTV.
We tried to. We did a little April Fool's thing last night with our waste management. It kind of went over all right. Okay.
Do we
Anything
actually
else?
have to, I'm hearing what you're saying in terms of having criteria. I'm
Mhm.
just wondering if we kind of think about that a little bit, because I really think that we're just getting started, and I would hate to get bogged down in long, lengthy discussions about criteria and stuff to try and really shift the focus.
I think that's case to case. I think it depends on what we're looking at as to the criteria. We have to look at two different criteria for each piece because we have different intentions for each piece.
Because when we're having competition for the banners, we have clear criteria what we want,
Absolutely.
and that was very helpful.
And so I think that we just have to make sure that we always have clear criteria. And part of that criteria has to be how controversial we want it,
Right, yes.
right? Because at some point we might want a piece that's a little bit more interesting and less.
I was just gonna, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I don't know if this is appropriate right now, but I was looking at the request for proposals, and I was wondering if there's ever been a discussion about inviting, for example, the Sikh community to take one of the boxes. If that's appropriate rather than a general, you know, call to artists. Or if it's possible to do that, if it's possible maybe that Squamish Nation might want to at some point offer a competition to do a design around that. I don't know if that's criteria or I don't know. I just wondered if we wanted to talk
Targeted.
about that.
I think that's absolutely a valid conversation. And anytime, if I know we didn't talk about one of the things last time, one of the boxes we were going to wrap, we forgot to have that conversation. But absolutely, if the committee says, you know, we want to start creating some cultural awareness out there, let's send something out to the Filipino community, let's something else out to the Francophone community, let's send something to the Sikh community, absolutely. I think that's great.
Because if we put in criteria that public art should be culturally inclusive, it fits.
I'm just wondering if in fact, and I don't know how these call for proposals go out, but if we might specifically target some people because we really want initially to get their engagement in public art.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is-
We
is
can also
what
do
I'm
that
thinking.
individually, can't we? Like if I wanted to see a piece that was, I could take it to the First Nation, say, and go take it to an artist, say, hey, there's this request for proposals and I think you'd be good,
Yeah, I've done that.
right? And I mean, that's, you know, I've done that well before I was on this board, to be
Yeah.
like, hey, I see this thing and I know 50 artists and I think this is a good piece for you, right?
That,
It's-
we could absolutely do both approaches, and I think if we were trying to be very specific, we do it a little more directly or with a more
Yeah.
concerted effort. If we're just trying to elicit more diversity within our applications, then we can just, you know, push that visual. Absolutely. All right, thanks, Devin.
Moving on to staff updates.
Do you have anything on the mosaic?
I do.
Okay, you'll do that in the update?
Oh, I'm sorry. My slides are out of order.
Okay.
So we've spent some good time during the month of September talking with operations, a couple of different suppliers, two of the artists, Bruce Walter and Glenn Anderson, both having independent conversations with them. Catherine was kind enough to sit in on those two conversations with me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through some of the themes and some of the discussions that have gone around, and then we can bat that around. I do have a staff recommendation just in terms of as a jumping off point for discussion. So with the Parks Department and planning and myself, we talked about bridges. We talked about a bridge in so much that to protect the piece. We looked at, and this is going to feel like it's all over the place because the thoughts kind of are when you're standing out there staring at a disintegrating mosaic. But the general consensus is that we should continue to cover it through this winter, and that the Parks Department should stop plowing.
Good thing.
Yeah, that is absolutely getting resistance, but with the committee support, I'm going to suggest that it becomes a shovel-only snow removal. We have researched a sealant called Shark Grip and it tends to be the sealant that keeps coming up with a couple of different suppliers. It's a non-slip sealant that has texture in it, so that in theory you're preventing fall hazards. The restore repair approach is where it was the general approach that we were looking at the entire mosaic. Timing for the most part is that we have nothing will happen in 2017, and that we're looking at this discussion for the spring, summer of 2018. Winter considerations, I spoke about. Another thing to start thinking about is the wings of the mosaic, as opposed to the walkway centerpiece, which we generally refer to it. And then 2018 budget considerations. I have put money into a special project envelope that is separate from public art so that staff and the capital project manager do have some money should the committee decide to either remove the center portion or do something beyond the scope of the committee.
Right, okay.
This was, in speaking with Bruce Walter, one of the mosaicists out of Vancouver, and using him as kind of a subject matter expert and consultant, he sent this photo to me, and this is an option to the committee as well, to infill around the intact pieces with asphalt, and you can, decide whether or not you like it for yourself, but it does provide an opportunity for the mosaic to continue to live and kind of continue organically. And so I wanted to show what a real life application of that could look like. Just as a jumping off point, the mosaic is approximately 20 years old. Everyone seems to think that the mosaic is in actually pretty decent shape for it being 20 years old and having had no restoration and no repair. What I have learned is that, and the conclusion that we're making is that most of the damage came with the new snow removal equipment that arrived last year. And so it provided an opportunity for us to have this conversation around this table. So, like I said, as a jumping off point, we should look at restoring the wings of the mosaic and having some restoration done on that in the spring, and then we could seal the sides of that to provide long-term integrity to it. The wings or the sides of the mosaic are not ever going to be plowed. There's just no need to do it, so in the winter months it kind of stays insulated by the snow. That sealant would just get scraped off immediately if it were to go over the center portion. So the center portion kind of would remain as is for as long as the committee felt it to be reasonable. It could be left to continue to deteriorate until they felt it was time for it to be removed. But operations does feel that the long-term recommendation is to remove the center portion and just put concrete down. And then to reinstall a commemorative sign to include photo of the completely intact mosaic. So currently there's a plaque, and that plaque could get redone.
Yeah, it's a bit watermarked or.
Yeah,
Staining.
it needs some elbow grease. Yeah.
I was looking at it tonight, and the center portion isn't that big. So we're not talking about, like, it's a couple of feet across
Yeah.
in terms of the width of it. 'Cause in my head, I couldn't remember how much would be impacted by having a removal.
Yeah, it's in my notes.
Maybe 3-4 feet of it.
So your recommendation is that we seal the wings.
Yeah, restore them.
So what does restore mean?
It would mean hiring one of the two consultants, I'll call them, that we've been talking to, Glenn Anderson or Bruce Walter, and they would spend time actually restoring. They would be using their own weatherproofed tiles to repair the sections that need replacing.
On the wings, but not on the main part?
Correct, yeah.
And they're suggesting that we leave the center portion as is? They are suggesting?
No, well, their suggestion was that, well, Bruce's suggestion was that eventually that centerpiece is going to need to come out. And so you either work on restoring it and continue a long-term maintenance plan, or you cut your losses, let it continue to deteriorate, and then remove it.
I think there was an acknowledgement that we're not going to move the walkway.
Yes.
Yeah. Is it worth sealing that part to have it last a little bit longer?
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely could be sealed. It was the optics of if you liked the look of it as is and the effort to seal it.
And can we not cover it if they're using machinery on it kind of thing for the winter? Because it really wouldn't be.
They don't have to use machinery on it. Like, seriously, operations.
Yeah. Their mandate is for that path to be clear and safe, but that can happen with a number of different means. Like, they can absolutely continue to use the snow removal equipment, just that one section has to be done with a shovel.
But there's sort of bridge over it. I wonder if we shouldn't have just a little bit more permanent bridge. And
It's
view
just
mosaic
plywood
as
right
a
now.
river.
It's just plywood. We did talk about a permanent or semi-permanent bridge. You look at the rise and run, and there's not a whole lot of rise and run to get up and over and then back down. not totally undoable, but then you weigh that against.
You still
you're
can't see the
covering-
artwork and.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
covering
that's
it,
the
and
point.
it's,
Yeah.
and it's,
And the other option is to just fill in the blanks right now with asphalt
Yeah.
and seal it and sort of just let that be what it is until it maybe deteriorates more in the future, and then in a
Yeah.
couple of years from now, we make another decision.
I
exactly.
think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I kinda like it.
Or we remove it and have it as a standalone piece.
Yeah, but doing something
It's
like
heavy.
this, I mean, doing something like this has its charm, it shows its
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
It shows the love that piece has gotten.
Yeah, it becomes a local antique.
And I mean, it also, yeah,
Fine.
I don't know.
And this would be something that whoever we hire to fix it up, they could do this treatment too?
Yeah, we would do, the asphalt part would be an operations component along with supervision of
Thank you.
an artist or a mosaicist. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be asphalt, it could be cement too, couldn't it? It could be
The
whatever.
asphalt is easier to remove, so if you ever wanted to actually,
Okay.
yeah.
It would be pretty cool actually to be adding a layer, with the asphalt.
So, committee, can you go back to recommendations?
Yeah. Yes.
So am I hearing from the committee, we like the asphalt treatment?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion, yes.
So maybe we'll get into the recommendations, we'll add the motion that on the center part, we'll fill in the blanks with some asphalt.
Can we take 1 second just to talk about the finances of this? How is that?
Yeah,
That is fairly least expensive, but
Yeah.
I don't think that piece will add too much, but maybe
I
$1,000,
don't
I don't know.
I would think, yes, I
Yeah.
actually didn't price out that, but I
Okay.
will, and I don't see it costing more than a couple $1,000.
But you'll bring back a final
I will,
price tag
I
on
will,
it?
with your continued recommendation, alter.
That's what I apologize.
Yeah, that's right.
Interrupting.
Does this include looking at the condition of the substrate underneath the mosaic?
No. No, because,
We're getting into tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you can bring back a final budget amount on that?
yes, so I'm adjusting.
And some of that would come from our budget, and some would come from ops, you said? There's a bit of a,
Yeah, there's some gray area here that I would need to talk with Gary
Mhm.
Buxton about in terms of who the line of where the Public Art Committee's responsibility is.
okay.
So what I'm hearing is that the center part asphalt
that could be
And then
safety.
seal it.
Safety,
Yeah.
that's different pressure.
Safer than
And-
slipping tiles.
and wings sealed
Mhm.
and center part sealed.
I think once it's asphalted, I think you wanna try to keep it as
Yeah.
long as we can, yeah.
Sealed, wings sealed, wings restored and sealed.
We want to restore the wings if we're not restoring the center part.
Yeah, I'm not
Should we
even
do
sure
that?
how much restoration is necessary on the wings.
Like, should we asphalt treatment that as well?
Should we, so that's a question, good question. Should we just seal the wings? Or do you think it's worthwhile going in and having someone put the odd tile in there to fix it up? Or do we just seal it?
I say no tiles, because they're not the original tiles, they aren't the original artists, so just,
And unless you're gonna do the whole thing, why do any of it?
Yes.
yeah.
Well, that's how mosaic restoration works, is removal and replacement. So, I mean, basically you have to make a decision about where you see the mosaic in the future, which is gradual, graceful disintegration, which is actually kind of a BC sort of thing. When you think of indigenous art and other types of artists outside. So, I mean, there's a certain poetry about it, but we'd all have to understand that, I think, and
Yeah.
tell other people, because I think that there might be a
And that was definitely one of the
feeling.
Yeah, one of the feelings that Bruce Walter talked about, and I had brought up with the committee before, that deterioration, that European
So,
degradation.
so we're talking, to restore the wings is between $2,000 and $4,000-ish.
Correct.
So why don't you bring the whole budget back next time and we can make a firm decision on whether or not we want to restore the wings? Because it is the middle that gets the traction, right? And we're never going to be able to keep that up to a standard. But the wings will last quite a bit if we give it a little TLC. So maybe bring that back to budget and we can make a decision on the whole thing next month.
Can we take a little bit of money out of operations if it's really their equipment that's come through that section and done it so that we can actually?
Well, that's what Devin said. She's going to look to see if there's a little bit in operations. We have been putting X amount aside every year to make sure we have monies to do maintenance on public art.
Yeah, but it seems to me there's a little responsibility and accountability kind of thing. I know it's all the same pocket, I get it, but.
It all comes from the same place, but yeah.
But-
Yeah, and Devin said yes, there is potential partnership with the operations budget to make this happen.
Yeah, in terms of capital, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's just kind of like if there's a little added incentive to make sure it's in the shovel, you know, and not
So-
equipment.
So just so I'm
I
clear,
agree, thank you.
Yeah.
the direction for the wings is that they're just sealed at this point and that there's no restoration.
No, I think we want to see the price tag for the restoration.
Okay.
And then we can make a decision, but I see the value. I mean, if we can do a little restoration and keep the wings going for quite a while, that's great. If we just sort of let it all disintegrate, that's another choice that the committee has, and that's fine too. But I think we'll have the full price tag, maybe what ops can contribute to it, so we know what is actually coming out of our
Yeah.
budget. Yeah, go ahead.
Could we perhaps as a committee go and take a look at it? Since
I think
across
it's
the
a good
street.
idea, because I
Yeah.
don't know what the wings are.
Well, why don't
Yeah,
we, after the
'Cause
meeting,
I have an
we'll just go
emotional
up there.
attachment for it now.
Yeah.
And so, well,
Was the flash
I
on?
do,
Yeah.
there's history there,
Yeah.
and I like it.
So we'll go right after the meeting. We'll try to finish it up in the
It'll
next
be
10
dark
minutes.
though, but-
I know,
Yeah.
we'll have to do it with our,
Right, was that-
everyone turn their phone on at the same time.
You should have told us when you.
I know, we could have sit out there. Okay, thanks, Devin.
Yes, thank you.
So we can do this fairly quickly, the updates.
Yeah, the updates, as I said a few meetings ago, that I would keep the budget as a standing item. The only addition from last month was the Squamish Arts Council's mural project, which was the pump station, it's not a pump station, in Valley Cliff that was
The youth
Toby's,
art.
the youth art. I'm having a hard time figuring out the name of the location.
At Clark Drive
Thank you.
and Guilford.
Yeah, Clark Guilford, that's what I was trying to say.
I'm here for you, Devin, don't
My
worry.
apologies. And then just a quick update on the BC Hydro project. It's going well. I expect installation to be in the next 3 to 4 weeks. The Howe Sound Secondary is working on their box, and once that's submitted to me, I'll circulate it to the subcommittee that was formed last for review.
So how are we doing that one? Did it just go out to the art class, or did we put a?
It went out to the art class.
And the art class is putting it cumulatively
Yeah,
together?
I'm in the art class.
It's coming
Got
along?
the inside things. Yeah, our teacher, she's mentioned it a lot, and it was like one of the projects that we were assigned if we wanted to tackle it. So I think students are interested.
Okay.
Am I allowed to submit some?
You're allowed to, I think it's are they submitting one project, like a
They-
collaborative project, or are they?
One collaborative project, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
so I
you can
left
be
it
part
with-
of it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you can always submit something, you just have to recuse yourself if we're adjudicating
She
it.
kind of gave it to like each student could submit something
Right,
on
okay,
their own instead
Sides.
of like a whole class one. So
okay, cool. Looking forward to that. Do we have an idea of when did we give them a deadline?
I think
Yeah.
it was the 13th.
Okay, excellent. Deadline's
Nice
for
work.
me.
The other question I had, there was one with the poetry,
Mhm.
and is there an update on that?
Do you have the final version of that on there? I have it on my computer if you don't.
I did not put it in there.
I don't need to see it necessarily, I'm just wondering if that has been successfully
It
completed.
has, and I thought it was, who else looked at it?
I looked at it very quickly.
Yeah, I thought it's what I expected, I thought it was good.
Excellent,
Yeah.
good. I
Um,
look forward to see it.
yeah, I will try to dig it up by the end of the meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
The map thing that we were doing where we put the hydro box locations.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we could absolutely, we'll put that on the mapping, absolutely. That's
Oh,
a
yeah,
good-
absolutely.
Good that, as soon as they're up, actually, we'll make sure we get maybe Sandra up to take pictures and we can put that up there right away.
Absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely.
And the youth center too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just.
Anything you think is public art out there, go out and take a picture and we'll get it up there. Oh, here we go, redesign. So here's I'll just see if you can. This was the redesign. Oh, sorry there, Kelsey. This is the redesign. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay,
So the only other item on the staff updates was a request from myself in discussions to potentially move November 1st meeting to November 8th.
that work with everybody? Let me just, my calendar?
First, one day's like any other.
Yep, works for me, everybody's good. We'll just make sure we get lots of, people get used to the first Wednesday of the month, make sure we get lots of
Yeah.
email reminders.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yes, I'm gonna have to adjust my calendar now. It's not the first
Yes.
Wednesday.
Yeah, I have a little show and tell here. Has anyone been to the Cheakamus Center where they
Yes.
have the Halacton's new Truth and Reconciliation poll?
No.
Beautiful. They had a poll raising a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, actually just after the last meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so a
almost
month ago.
yeah.
Yellow cedar, all sorts of symbolism in there. The way that First Nations do these ceremonies is so beautiful and so meaningful, and it makes the ribbon cutting ceremony look really ridiculous. Trite. Anyway, something for the committee to think about in terms of next year, if whether perhaps one of the bigger projects or the big project is more of a reconciliation, First Nations focused piece of art. It doesn't have to be a welcoming poll or anything like that, but just throwing that out there. And we're going to have more of a comprehensive conversation about next year's work plan or strategy. Probably next meeting actually, so that we can, if we want to do that, we can get proposal calls out early in the new year so that we can actually get something done by the spring, summer.
And what was really cool about that poll is that it was carved over the course of the spring and summer by Will Upton and some of his assistants, and it was, because it's the outdoor school, it was right next to where the children ate, so it was huge interaction.
Yeah.
I did an interview with them while it was being
Really
made.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's
I have some pictures if you want to.
That's what I hope at some point the canoe shed will be able to have something going on there. Same kind of thing,
Yeah.
because they've done them up at Whistler, they've done them in many different
Yeah.
locations.
at the SLCC. they've
So,
got
yeah,
outdoor
I think
gardens.
it's a.
So Nation members have used that to work on canoes. They have actually
Yeah.
used it, which is great.
Yeah.
They now have a canoe shed over on their, at the Stoutness Reserve, so they've got a couple of spots. The canoe shed over there is much more of a storage
workshop.
canoe shed. It's a storage.
Storage shed, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, no, the young people have been working on canoes there on and off the whole time. But it would be fantastic if whoever, if we had something like this, someone
Oh,
carving there
absolutely,
for
I
3 or
agree.
4 months.
The
Undercover.
high school as well, when they did the Eagle Shelter, the art pieces
Yeah.
there, again, it was a public in terms of the school,
Mhm.
you know, so that people did come and worked on that as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so.
Okay, anything else? Yeah.
I've got a round.
Yep, go for it.
Yes, I do too.
And this is something that is
it's kind of come up since we did the mural, the 2 mural projects, the one at the library and the one at Brennan Park. For me, I had a chance to have a little bit of a discussion with the artist that did the library project, purely because I had done some interior design for the library with their new children's section, and I wanted to make sure that the colors were going to coordinate with the new fabrics and the new laminates and that we put into that I picked for the designs, and so I did liaise a little bit with the artist prior to the installation, and then once the installation was complete, she emailed me just to kind of talk about the completion of it, and in reviewing the mural, I felt that there were some deficiencies, but there was really no way to kind of formally address that because there was nothing in place as far as whether there would be a review before it was complete.
Right.
And specifically there were some kind of minor things. The sheen on the paint, the background of the mural was the fresh new paint that had been put on by the interior design the painter, right? And the sheen was rubbed off in multiple cases all over the wall because of pencil marks that the artist had put on there, but then had altered the design a little bit and then erased it. And so, and I believe that it's all still there, and I felt that it was very distracting and looked unprofessional. But that's my point of view. So, and then there was something else that the design was abruptly cut off, as in a couple of the honeycombs were just cut off at a certain level because I believe she had been given a directive that there were going to be bookshelves against the walls, so she only needed to go down so far, but in the meantime they're exposed. And so, from my point of view, it would have been common sense just to, not just
finish it up,
yeah.
The bookshelves were moved.
Yes, they were moved, and so,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what directive she'd been given as far as what height to put it at, but it should have just, the honeycomb should have just continued. And I talked to Hillary about it afterwards, and she said, we'll just make sure there's high books on top of those shelves to kind of cut it off. But it was just something that wasn't caught, wasn't noticed. Nobody was on site watching the artist, and there was no kind of,
Yeah.
Sign off sort of thing.
Yeah, sign off.
There's no sign-off process.
And so the artist said that she had completely sealed everything that was her scope, but she didn't seal she had no intention of sealing the whole wall, which would have covered up probably the sheen marks. I'm not sure, but anyway, those are some things that happened in the process that maybe we need to consider that for the next ones.
That's really good feedback.
To think about is maybe assigning somebody off from the committee to be a little bit of a oversee the project.
Yeah, it's oversight.
From an artistic point of view, and also making sure that that there's a sealer put on the whole thing, or it was specifically the design that we chose, that someone else's design may have included the entire wall, right?
Exactly.
As far as painting it, so.
But I think
the logistics.
Yeah.
regardless of what the design is, we expect it to be
Yeah.
complete within
of
the
course,
context
yeah,
of the
yeah,
canvas.
yeah.
It's a business transaction.
Yeah,
We're hiring someone.
So, and then another issue, and it was because for the first time during September was when I went and actually looked at the mural at Brennan Park.
Yep.
And I was surprised to see that the mural wasn't applied to the wall, that it was actually on plywood panels that were affixed to the wall. So I don't know when and who made that decision.
The artist made that decision,
Yeah.
Did the artist
So,
talk to anybody about that?
not on the committee, obviously.
yeah,
There was some feedback from the facilities operation, from facilities, that happened without me being there, and it was a decision that he ran with.
yeah. So anyway, I was just surprised that it had been done on panels as opposed to directly
I didn't
onto the
notice,
wall.
so maybe I didn't look
Yeah.
closely enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the finished product, so I have no idea whether that was sealed or not. Not that it really matters if
Yeah.
it's done with the proper kind of paint anyway.
Mhm.
But there were, it looked a little bit like it, you know, some of the one of the panels wasn't installed exactly level with the rest, and so one's kind of down a little bit. I don't know. It's another case where I think it would have been good for somebody from the committee to kind of,
To be the liaison
Yeah,
on these,
yeah,
for the
yeah.
artists, yeah.
yeah,
Yes, that is great feedback, and
yeah,
this was our first attempt at this,
Yeah.
so,
yeah. And I did have some feedback from people that aren't on the committee, some other artists, that they felt that the imagery was a little bit maybe more adult looking. I don't know. Just,
you know,
Yeah.
people are gonna have
Of
comments
course,
on
of course there's
content,
gonna be
and that's their
comments,
opinion,
yeah.
and thank you very much.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it's the actual sort of
and-
delivery,
and personally, looking at it, there's is it a peg leg kind of image of this thing, and it looks like a phallic male thing, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
I didn't see.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just being weird, whatever.
Yeah.
Have to go to the Brennan Park.
Yeah, you guys would know.
I actually thought some of the signposts as well, they just need a couple of rocks and we've maybe got perfect phallic symbols all through
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
what
there you go.
I mean, we're
There
an
you go.
active community,
There you go.
right? Lots of, right, this is on TV.
Yes, well, that's why.
So I think that's a great thing, and maybe we'll have a note of that, is that we'll assign a liaison person from the committee to a project, just to have that oversight, so we're
Yeah,
getting
so-
what
Yeah,
we're,
so if something comes
paying
up,
for.
I mean, it's not, everything's no biggie, right?
Yeah,
But
it's a
just,
learning
you know,
experience.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just confused, did Brendan Park staff not want it painted on the wall?
No, I think that in our conversation about Brennan Park undergoing renovations sometime over the next X number of years, that the artist may have taken it upon himself and taken that directive to,
Did he be able to remove it so then it could be reinstalled?
yes.
Did he treat the panels? I'm concerned
And-
about warping.
And this is where my lack of art knowledge, I don't know.
So
I'll
maybe
find that
take
out.
a note that if we're doing this in future and we want something sealed, that's part of the RFP.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That it's very clearly defined that
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sealant
Should have
is
come back to the
expected.
committee.
Yeah.
There was a few things
Yeah.
to learn from.
But
the
maybe
art.
just call them up and ask them if it was sealed.
I will.
Because there's a difference between the mural and the painting on a plywood.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah, I mean, the plywood was definitely primed for sure, and then painted on, but,
Yeah, and he continued also around, which the Director of Rec Services approved.
I'm not, that's okay.
Yeah.
Great feedback, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Catherine?
Our great little salmon sculptures all over the town. I was just a little concerned about the one at the shopping mall because I think the smallest salmon has been bent.
Someone's sat on it and Ben.
Yeah, tried to ride it home or something, but, so I don't know, haven't looked at it close up, but I thought maybe somebody could take a look and see if it's damaged, especially the
Yeah.
poles that hold the salmon in
I think
place.
Christina's back in town in a couple weeks, so a month, so.
Yeah,
maybe
it's been
we'll
like
have-
that for a while,
I noticed
and
it
I've been
about a
meaning
month ago.
to say
Yeah.
something, yeah. So, it's just the smallest one, I think it's the one out front, like out of the three.
Yeah, and I think it's just the rebar it's sitting on has been bent over.
Yeah,
From what
yeah.
I can tell, so.
I mean, it doesn't look like the sculptures themselves are damaged.
No.
or anything.
Hopefully they cut themselves.
I don't know, are we going in any order? or is it
No,
just-
I'm just, if I see someone who's interested,
Last meeting, you said you thought there were 3 open graffiti sites.
what
Do
are the
we know?
art walls that we were designated about 6 years ago
As
now?
open?
I'll have to go back and look through minutes.
I thought there was 4 we designated.
And I had it in
One
my
of them
notes.
is taken up now with under the,
The underpass,
Yeah.
yeah.
but I thought it was.
Because it might be, I would be curious, I don't want to do a whole lot of.
I'm pretty sure that one of them was the big concrete blocks that were all along the highway, along just where the Valley Cliff area is.
Yeah, could be.
I'm pretty sure that was one of them,
Maybe
but I know
Debbie-
that it's all overgrown right now, so it's one of those things that maybe,
I'll email out everyone.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
email it to us, that'd be great.
yeah.
The other question I have, or thought I had, which is really a follow-up to the last meeting, is the tagging of the graffiti underneath the Mamprim Bridge. And thinking about that a little bit more, I think it would be really cool, rather than just kind of painting over as a block, which is easy, if we could actually make an interesting shape around it, you know, and then do some kind of an art piece on top of it. Did we actually talk about?
I thought at the end of the meeting, Kiana sort of thought, hey, maybe I can get some friends together and we can go and fix this up. You still thinking about doing that?
Yeah, we want to do that, we just haven't had the
Yeah.
time, which is the only thing. But yeah, my friend, she's really interested in like making public art
Yeah.
and like murals, so it's really cool to have our art up. So.
Yeah.
The reason why I was thinking that if it's kind of, this is the shape of the tag and it's actually an oblong kind of thing, if we actually have the base coat that covers it up in that shape, what we're doing is we're acknowledging the kind of pissed offness that somebody had to actually do that in the first place. And we're saying, yeah, there's a more productive way of engaging with the community rather than just doing a block square. So it's just something to think about it if it's doable, or if it's an interesting shape to add that, to acknowledge that it has been tagged. We hear what you're saying, but we want you to be more socially acceptable rather than doing that.
I wouldn't say socially acceptable, just more respectful
Okay, yeah,
Mhm,
that
right.
does. That does.
of someone else's artwork.
So that was just a thought that went through my head.
Yeah.
The other thing was that the show and tell thing, I happen to be down in Vancouver. I have submitted 2 photographs only, but one is graphic art. So if anybody else has examples of graphic art, so there's a message as opposed to fine arts, I think it'd be kind of fun maybe to sort of set a little bit of a theme maybe for the show and tell for next.
Sure, we're totally open to anything. It's, the show and tell is just all about sort of inspiring new ideas and seeing new things.
So I just
and-
wanted to tell people that I've got one, and one
Okay.
only. If I have a few more, I might send them through, but
Okay.
I just thought
I'm
of
surrounded
oh, but-
by really talented graphic artists all the time.
Yeah,
Well, I just might be interested, so
Another-
that it's not simply a fine arts piece,
Mhm.
but rather this is
Sure.
conveying, different ways of conveying messages that might be useful for us. That's it.
awesome. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
No, no,
I just have one other thing that came to mind during this last month is operations when they're covering up graffiti, they're using 14 different shades of grays and browns to cover it up, and it's like, is there any way that you can kind of get one paint happening, like one paint color? Because like, or
can't say
just leave the graffiti, because maybe that's better. I don't know.
It's interesting, actually. I would never.
I've seen, there's, the Mampam overpass, it's like there's
so many different colors of the cover-up color that it's kind of like, this is looking really tacky, like, you
Deb,
know?
what about,
Yeah,
what about,
I don't know.
seeing if Ops wants to come in and have a conversation with the Public Art Committee?
I mean, maybe it's just a
I don't blame them,
trivial
because it
thing,
just doesn't
but
occur to them.
it's just
Like,
kinda-
they have their routine and they have their
Yeah.
processes and
Yeah.
we're asking them to
Yeah.
make a little differently when they're doing something that they've done the same way that,
Mhm.
so,
Mhm.
but I think we have that conversation, so just
I
maybe in
can
the
get, I
next
can
month,
show you
think
some
about,
examples, I could take some photos.
bring some photos.
Yeah.
Could be
Think
your
about
show
those
and tell next
examples
time.
of how, you know, how we wanna make sure that, and they can also tell us what some of their processes are, and we can say, okay,
Mhm.
this
Maybe
matters, it matters that
Trying to
it's,
save us some dollars.
it
too.
matters that the
Yeah.
patch up of the tagging looks better than the tagging, that matters. It matters
Right.
that we're not
Yeah, because
just running
why
machines
cover
over-
it up, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so, okay,
some
so
of
we'll,
it's cool, so.
Do you want to give some thought about what those agenda items might be, or do you want me to put him, ask a representative to come for next meeting?
Yeah. and we'll have that conversation with them.
Tell us about your job.
No, this is the person who just puts the paint on?
Someone from operations, it would be the manager, it would be the
It
manager.
would be cool if you brought someone, or,
Because-
okay, bring him in to say, do you have questions for us? And
Mhm.
sort of-
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's a two-way
Yeah.
Because
conversation.
I bet there's that sort of, I mean, it's not quite an us and them thing, but it's like we're coming at
It's
it
about
all from
communication,
different places.
yeah.
places.
There's knowledge mix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
magic.
There could be a
Yeah.
purpose in it, because, for example, if you look at the post boxes, which are designed by Karim Rashid, and the criteria was that no one would paint graffiti on it. It's so busy with those colorful
Mhm.
numbers and so.
There very well could be a reason why
And
something's
there could
done.
be a reason they use different shades of grey, so no one would attempt to.
I can't wait to hear that.
50 Shades of Grey.
Either way, it's a great conversation to have,
Yeah,
because
I think
they
we're-
they might see all sorts of stuff out there that we go, oh, it'd be really good to do that, or, so that's great. Awesome,
Invent something.
cool. Motion to terminate. Moved by Matrix, seconded by Adrian, all in favor, opposed, motion carries.